Hello and welcome to this interview with my good friend Bill here. He literally went from being an online business owner who didn't have a single connection in the space to now literally talking to billionaires, helping him scale his company, helping him grow the business, making more money, build meaningful relationships. And in this interview, he's just going to reveal how he did it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks, Bill, for hopping on here with me. And just
Of
for
course.
context, how Bill and I met, him and I were part of the same online networking group. And I was hosting my events back then. And he just reached out to me because he wanted to learn more about them. He wanted to learn more about meeting other online entrepreneurs in person and just like building this relationship. And since then, Bill and I have a great friendship. We jumped on many calls since then. We met in person and we're just keep building this relationship. And now we're here basically. So, Bill, you can just introduce yourself real quick and tell your story, like the fast version, because on my YouTube channel, I'll link the video here. We have like a
Yeah.
very long podcast episode, the most successful video on my channel. So I'll link this down below, and then you can check out the longer version of Bill's story. But he'll give you the quick rundown now.
Yeah. So the quick rundown is I flipped Instagram accounts for a while, eventually transitioned into starting a company in the sports betting space where basically I built some tools that beat the sports betting markets. I've been banned from some casinos and I help average sports bettors actually use math to make a profit. And I did that. I've been doing that for about 4 years. And then I never really knew anyone in the entrepreneur space at all. So today we're recording this early May 2024, and a year and 6 months ago, I did not know a single soul online. I was just this kid in my room building a business. And I mean, I kind of still am, but now I have a lot of friends, at least doing similar things, similar tangent things, I should say, to what I'm doing. So I joined a networking group and that's where I met Danilo, as he mentioned. And from there, I really learned the power of how one connection can just change your entire life. So yeah,
Yeah, that's great, man. And just like as a short disclaimer, because I feel like people associate like a lot of scams with this whole online sports betting game. So why are you different than all of these like other scammers out there? Just so the people here don't get like a negative picture of you.
yeah. So long story short, most of the people that sell sports betting advice are just doing it to fund their own losses or just to make money because it's very high profit margin. I've hired people to do everything for me, meaning actual real pros. I've never sold my own advice. And then I've also partnered with some of the biggest data companies in the world. I have live proof on my YouTube of me being banned and limited from major casinos like BetMGM, if you've heard of them, and many more. So if you want more on me, you can just go check out my channel or the interview with Danilo.
Yeah, sounds good, man. And what would you say, how did your like personal but also business life look like back then before you joined the first networking group and before you met like all of these crazy people in comparison to how it looks like now?
It was weird because I was in this phase where I didn't know how to meet the people I wanted to meet. I knew like networking groups were out there, but they're all of them were expensive or I didn't trust the people that owned it and eventually just took the risk and it ended up working out to be honest. But before it was literally just me working in my room, eat, sleep, work, go to the gym. It's about it. And it gets pretty boring. So
Yeah. And how does it look like now?
it's all of that. Plus, I have a bunch of cool friends that I get to talk to, hear their opinions on things. Like I was literally last weekend at a house talking to a venture capitalist that is managing over $1 billion, and he was giving me advice on my business, and it was pretty cool. So like all of that stemmed from literal networking groups like the one that I told you I joined over a year ago.
Yeah. And how did we get from you being lonely in your room, not knowing a single soul, to you talking to a venture capitalist who manages like over $1 billion in his fund?
It was a bit of a journey, to be honest, but meeting lots of people. And then the ones that I could say I agreed with on a lot of things the most, I felt like I had a good connection with. I spoke a lot more with them and told them what I was looking for and basically said, hey, is there anyone you can connect me to that can help with this? Or specifically with you, you would just automatically do that to provide value to me. And I think one of the big things I learned was with every person you meet, if you go out of your way to do something for them or try to provide as much value for free, they're going to do something in return. So that's probably the biggest thing I guess I learned, because the only reason I was talking to the venture capitalist and many other people who are worth similar amounts or even more than he was because of that. I would go to people that were successful that I met through indirect connections or just connections, and I would just provide value to them without asking for anything in return. And then eventually, if I was like, hey, can you help me with this? They would always do it. And that's something most people would have to pay a lot of money to get.
Yeah. So I think this sounds very, very like hard or very unachievable to people like maybe listening to this, but they don't understand how fast this can go if you just meet the right guys. So what were like the steps from like this connection got you to got you introduced to this got you to here, and then you suddenly talk to this guy. Like how many steps were there in between?
So, and originally I met you. I joined the networking group. I met you. And then like last
I think I
October
was
or
literally
last,
like the first or second guy you talked to, right?
yeah, you
Inside
were
of
like
the
the
group.
second call I jumped on with someone.
Yeah.
And then you introduced me to a guy named Cade a while back, I think like October. So not really that far, like 8 months ago. And
Yeah.
then I told Cade about my business and literally just gave him free value pretty much. Cade happened to be friends with someone who was starting a company in the same space as me or a similar space and was like, bro, I really like you. I want you to meet this guy. Met that guy. And then he's become one of my closer friends, provided him a ton of value completely free. And he is an extremely successful entrepreneur, super well connected. Became good friends with him, as I mentioned. And then I got invited to some of his company's events. He actually even invited me to one of his company's events before I was even a client of his, and I am a client now. And then indirectly, he would introduce me to someone else, or something would come out of those events where I would meet somebody and then they would introduce me to somebody. So all it takes is one good connection, and then you just can meet pretty much anyone. It's kind of crazy. I mean, maybe not anyone, but the people you're looking for, I should say.
Yeah. I heard the quote which says like you're just like two or three connections away from literally anyone in the world. And it's low-key true because if you look at it, it was like you got connected to me or like we connected. Then you had the connection to Kate, like to the guy I introduced you to. Kate connected you to his friend, and then his friend like then managed to introduce you to literally everyone you wanted to get a connection to. So there were literally like three or four conversations that you maybe more, but like
Yeah.
three or four connections that got you from knowing no one to literally rubbing shoulders with like people who are worth a lot of money and who could help you scale your company a lot.
Yeah, and it's almost hard at first because it's such an indirect ROI. Like, meaning when I first joined my first networking group, it was thousands and thousands of dollars for me to join. And I was looking at it like, I don't know about this. I'm really skeptical. And then I joined, and like the first 2 weeks, like I met a few people, nothing really happened. But I didn't see the ROI for like months or even like year to come. But it was nurturing the connections, just meeting new people, and then knowing something good would come out of it eventually. Like the thousands of dollars I spent a year and a half ago was one of the best investments I made in my life. And for the first 6 months, I, to be honest, didn't really know if it was, but I also was alone in the group. Like it was just kind of like thrown into the group, meet whoever you want, try to figure it out on your own. Versus Helix is a bit different, obviously.
Yeah, just for context, like Helix is my own community where we do things a bit differently, but that's the topic for later. Maybe let's just into like this whole networking topic as for now, which is one interesting thing that I'd love to ask you, which is like people usually think you have to be like the super extroverted guy to build a powerful network. You have to be super outgoing, approach this guy, approach that guy. Like, would
Bro.
you say you're that type of person? I mean, I
No,
know the answer, but just for the
no,
guys
it's
here.
funny because you know me, dude. I'm like
Yeah.
one of the most introverted people ever. It would just be like the only thing I could do that was extroverted was see some people talking in a chat. I'd introduce myself. That's one thing that you also taught me was like really good introduction. That's what you need to put out there. So that's one thing that's extroverted that everyone has to do. But then it would just be like I'd shoot someone a text on the side and be like, "Hey, bro, think I could help you with this. Can we talk?" Or, "Hey, bro, tell me more about this. Let's jump on a call." And yeah, that's about it. Like I wasn't active like crazy in all the chats talking every day. I literally probably barely ever talked. So it's not like I was some crazy extrovert where people were reaching out to me saying, "How'd you do this? How'd you do that?" I was like, probably, I don't even know if most people know I'm even in there, like besides the introduction. Um, but it's
Yeah.
cool.
So I think like a common theme what you said so far is like, hey bro, I can help you with this, I can help you with that. So would you say the thing that opened pretty much majority of doors for you or almost all the doors for you was like helping people?
Yeah, I think initially it was just getting over the hump of just getting on calls with people. But then as I got on more calls, I learned the number one thing I have to do is provide value because if you don't, they're just going to forget about you after the call. Even if the person you're connecting with doesn't seem like they're the highest value person. Like, for example, if you jump on a call with someone in a completely different industry from you, it doesn't seem like there's anything you can get out of it. But if you can just give them something, and like for me, an example would be I'm really good at Instagram. I'm better than probably 99% of people at it. And I knew, hey, I can help you with this. Do you need any help with that? And even if they didn't, I'd be like, if you have a friend or someone else that would want help, I'll give it to them completely free just because I was on a call with you. And of course, if they were a high value person, they felt like they owed me one then. And then they would in turn introduce me to someone that I needed. Like, for example, my company was looking for like OnlyFans management agencies, funnily enough, because it's the same target market of 18 plus males. And then we were looking for affiliates. So, like, stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like you never know who's who. So it's just like I happen to know a guy who could like transform your life just through the connections he has as well, which is like super unrelated, right? Who could have known that I know this person, but you never know who the other guy knows. So that's why I also really follow this approach of just like
Yeah.
providing value to everyone.
Bro, wait.
And
I was gonna say, like, even like our first call, me and you, like you were telling me, like, yeah, you had your events, but like, bro, you did like social media marketing for like chiropractor, or I don't know, like dental clinics or
plastic
something, and for
surgeons, plastic
plastic
surgeons.
surgeons.
Yeah.
Like, how is that related to sports betting? How is that gonna help me? Like, this is a literal example of like me and you, I provide some value to you, and you indirectly connect me with this person, and then this person opens up all these doors for me. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an example.
It is an example. And I'm currently reading like this book, which is called Never Eat Alone, because it's like a great networking book. And what this guy says in this book, and I really feel like I love what he says there, which is like the best guys at it, they don't network, they make friendships.
Yeah.
It's literally that simple, man. It's like many people have the misconception of, oh, I have to network, like go networking, do this, do that, like kind of build these superficial relationships. Instead, it's just like, hey, man, let's just be friends,
Yeah.
basically.
It's like just you don't need to like, in my opinion, you don't need to like go out to a bunch of events and stuff. You just need to meet a few of the right people. And then obviously if events come out of that, like, yeah, that's great and all as well. But it's really just starts with meeting a handful of the right people and then seeing where that takes you.
Yeah.
So
So someone like you, bro, it's like you 2 years ago, you alone in your bedroom in Pennsylvania, man. It's like,
yeah,
where do you start meeting these right people? Like, how do you start?
like if I had to do it over again,
Yeah.
probably the same way. I would just join a networking group like Helix. Simple.
Okay, so you say like just joining networking groups is the shortcut.
Yeah, like don't like go cold DMing people on Instagram to get on calls with them. Like you can cold DM them like after you're in a networking group with them. Like for example, if you join a group like Helix and then someone else you see in there is, I don't know, you find someone, you find their Instagram, you're like, hey bro, saw you in this group, let's jump on a call. Then they're much
Yeah,
more likely to talk to you versus just like finding some dude with 15K followers who does social media marketing and just being like, let's talk, bro. And then like,
yeah.
so
I mean, it works, yeah, but it's again, it's much harder as if you already have like this common ground of being part of the same community.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. It's like I talk a lot about it, but it's just like, okay, I just ask you how you did it because as you said, like you were super introverted at the start versus now all the guys you met, all the events you've been at. I mean, I'm just like just following you around, like the stories you told us about where you're at, what kind of people you're spending time with. And how would you say, because that's also very important, like the mindset shift that you have from just being around these people, like how did your mindset change?
It's huge. It's like everything. Like last weekend, again, like another connection that I met through the indirect network kind of thing. was this guy who has a team of like 55 virtual assistants, and he was talking to me about basically team building and how I can build my own team. And then I started talking about like concerns I had. Like one of my big concerns was giving access to one of my Instagram accounts to like a virtual assistant, or like giving them access to a PayPal account, stuff like that. Because I was like, I'm never doing that. But like you hear people that are much more successful saying, if you get the right precautions in place, if you do this, this, and this, it's completely fine. And like stuff like that will get you so farther ahead. Just like getting advice from people, and then just being in the same rooms as those people, like you mentioned, like you are who you spend the most time with. So let's leave it at that.
Yeah. It's literally like they help you get rid of your limiting beliefs.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, indirectly, but yes.
Yeah, in terms of like, okay, you're basically like afraid. You're afraid of giving the people inside of your company access. You see they did it, and then you're like, okay, they did it. They're 100 times more successful than I am. It makes sense to do it as well.
Yeah, it's like small things like that, because if I didn't have that conversation last weekend, I might have waited another 6 months or even like a year like to give someone delegate access to something I thought I shouldn't be giving access to, or something along those lines. And then in that 6 months, I could make X amount money more because I have more free time now. So like that's what I mean when I say indirect ROI. It's not like you're gonna put in, I don't know, 5, 10 grand and then immediately get it back into your bank account. It's like things like that that add up in the long run.
Yeah. And I mean, you've attended one of my in-person events, but how would you like what would you say is the difference between like a call connecting with people online in comparison to okay, we actually hang out in person?
It's pretty cool, to be honest. I like it both, especially that I'm just alone in my room in Pennsylvania. So I do think it makes a big difference. I don't think it's essential to do it very often, but having it every now and then is definitely important.
Like this in-person touch with someone or like attending events?
Like attending in-person events, I think it's important to have them, but just at least for me personally, because I am
Yeah.
super introverted, but it's important to have them, but not crazy often. But if you don't have them, I think it takes away some value from the group,
Yeah.
if that
What
makes
about,
sense.
yeah, and what about like just being able or having the opportunity to meet also maybe like people inside of your city or where you're from and have the opportunity to meet up with them in person instead
Oh
of
yeah,
having to jump on a call?
like it's awesome. Like because obviously when you're in person, you can talk about a lot more. I mean, you can on a call, but it's I don't know. Once you do it a few times, you know it's different.
Sometimes it's quite ironic because for me, I always had stronger network, like a stronger network of people that I have access to, and literally in every other city but my hometown city. Because here you're always like your brain is conditioned. I work here, I don't go out, and that's literally it. So you don't really focus on actually meeting people in your city, whereas that's one of the most powerful things that you can do because sometimes you don't want to slash can't spend time with your day one friends because they maybe don't have time. They maybe just want to go to the club and drink and whatever. And now I just have a bunch of cool friends here that I can just call up. And at the start, that was my experience. Maybe you can comment on that. It's like always, majority of times, it's like business conversations because that's just how we're hardwired. It's like we talk about business. How do we make more money? How can we help each other make more money? And that's kind of like the main topics. But I feel like if you do it right, it quickly transitions to just an honest friendship. When I meet up with all of the guys that I know here from Munich now or wherever, we don't really talk, we hardly talk about business. We're like, okay, how's the business going if we didn't see each other for a while? And then we explain how the business is going. But then we're like, okay, how's the relationship? How's this? How's that? Let's book a villa in Greece in summer, do this, do that. It's like it evolves from like this superficial business connection to a actual friendship very quickly, I feel like, if you do it the right way. And that's actually even the even more powerful thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another thing for me was I have a very tight group of friends back home, like where I am right now, and not all of them are, I would say, like-minded to me, meaning they're not like in business really. They're all in college. They enjoy drinking, partying a bit more, and it would more just be kind of like yeah, you're doing great, bro. And I love them all still, but they wouldn't push me in the ways that some of the people in networking groups could, if that makes sense. So that was another big thing for me getting around more people that were into business the way I was that could push me further in that aspect of my life. And it's not to say I don't enjoy hanging out with my hometown friends still, because I do all the time and I love them, but
Definitely.
it's just different.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And what would you say to people who are where you were like a year and a half, 2 years ago, who are like, yeah, I might be interested in meeting more guys, but I'm like afraid of the investment. I don't know if it's worth it in general, or I don't know if like the time commitment is worth it. Like, what would you say to them?
I mean, to be honest, it's just you're betting on yourself. That's all it comes down to. Like, if you're going to put in the work, if you're going to meet the right people, if you're going to put in some effort, you're going to make a great ROI out of it. But like, if you don't think you're going to do that, then don't join. But I'm pretty sure most people, at least younger entrepreneurs, people around our age, would definitely be interested. So,
I mean, like in general, people who don't know if it's worth it, like investing their time in surrounding
oh,
yourself with like-minded people. I don't just mean like joining a community in
yeah,
general. I
yeah.
just mean like investing the time in meeting like-minded people and focusing on building the network first, maybe before you absolutely prioritize scaling the business.
Yeah, it's worth it, like 100%, because you're going to meet people that do things that you might not think you'll need, but eventually you would. Like, for example, met a good friend through the networking group, indirectly through you. Um, his name is Henry, and he does SEO. And then I never thought I would need SEO because I was just running this Instagram funneled business. Next thing you know, I have a website 2 years later, year and a half later, and he gets my website from zero traffic to 250 organic visitors a day. Stuff like that. Like
Crazy.
first 3 months that I knew, or 6 months that I knew Henry, I didn't ever think he was going to help my business in that kind of a way, but he did. So like stuff like that, it's always going to be worth it.
Yeah. For me, it's like it's kind of like this hen or the egg situation where people don't really know where to start. What I hear often is that people say, "Oh, bro, I focus on getting to 10, 20, 30K first, and that's when I want to start prioritizing to network or
Yeah.
start to meet other people." Whereas they don't understand if you meet the right people earlier, they can help you get to whatever goal you want to achieve so much faster.
Yeah, it's so true because you can just join one of these groups and you meet someone doing like, let's say you join, you're stuck at like 5, 10, 15K a month, or even like less. You join, you start immediately talking with people doing 20, 50, 100K months. They're going to push you further ahead so much quicker than you would on your own.
Yeah. I mean, that's also what I say. It's like nowadays the trend should shift from just people investing into courses and stuff to people investing into their surrounding and into their network. Because it's like one thing, it's like there's an abundance, there's an abundance of information out there. Um, but like basically this overload of information, oftentimes it's like just execution. And there's so many different sources of information, so many different ways how you can go about scaling the company or whatever. So it basically paralyzes you. Whereas if you have some guy, he's not like 10 steps, but like 1, 2 steps ahead of you, you meet him and you can be like, hey brother, you're at 2, 3K, you're at 5K, you're at 10K, I'm at 20, 30, doesn't matter. You just have to do these 2, 3 things and you'll get there easily.
Yeah, for sure. And then he can
Yeah.
help you afford Zoom Plus or Zoom Premium.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, man. So yeah, basically what are like the three main takeaways from this like conclusion from your side from this interview?
Networking is tough at first, especially if you're an introvert, but if you join the right community and you're surrounded by the right people, you'll get the ROI you're looking for. It might take longer than you want, but if you put in the work, it'll make you a lot of money in the long run. Like the money I spent a year and a half ago is going to be getting paid back to me for the next 10, 20 years of my life, indirectly and both directly. So it's always worth it as long as you are happy to bet on yourself, really.
Yeah. So that's like the three main takeaways in one.
I wouldn't say there's like three takeaways. I think it's just
Yeah.
one overall theme. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. No, man. Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for this interview. I think you, or not, I think, like, I'm very sure you helped quite a few guys out there, just mindset wise, to help them see, okay, this is actually something that I should prioritize sooner than later, ideally right now, because that's just the most important thing that you have to tackle as an entrepreneur. And this doesn't really matter on what level you are. Like I see people who are at zero who need help, but also people, we had someone joining Helix recently. He made 12 million last year. And he was like, bro, I made 12 million last year. I managed to get here by myself with ecom, but I'm fucking lonely, bro. I just want to meet like-minded guys. I want to meet the boys now. So no matter where you're at, like I feel like everyone has to surround themselves with the right people. And that's why, yeah, thanks for this interview, bro. Really appreciate you a lot.
Of course.